पर लोगों को रोजगार भी मिलेगा और वो रोजगार शायद डिमांड लेवल भी बढ़ाएगा, लोगों की परचेसिंग पावर भी उससे बढ़ेगी। तो इन सभी मुद्दों पर बात करने के लिए आज हमारे साथ जुड़ गए हैं राजगीर से नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी के प्रोफेसर सोमनाथ बंदोपाध्याय। बहुत बहुत स्वागत है प्रोफेसर सोमनाथ बंदोपाध्याय आपका हमारे कार्यक्रम में।
नमस्कार पूर्णिमा जी, थैंक यू
जी। तो प्रोफेसर सोमनाथ बंदोपाध्याय आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कैसे बिहार प्रगति के पथ पर आगे बढ़ेगा, क्या चुनौतियां हैं और क्या समाधान है। जी
पूर्णिमा जी, आपने बहुत बड़ा कैनवस पेंट किया है, तो जाहिर है कि यू आर राइट। आई मीन, इतना बड़ा राज्य, उसकी इतनी सारी चुनौतियां, और ये कोई इमीडिएट तो नहीं हुआ है। दिस हैज टेकन अ लॉन्ग टाइम टू कम टू वेयर वी आर टुडे। सो एज वी वर डिस्कसिंग द अदर डे, करीब 12वीं सदी में, almost 800 years ago, we had seen the destruction of higher educational institutions in Bihar. Uh, but that was the beginning of the downfall of a very major, uh, very illustrious and very prosperous region, जहाँ पे which was known to be the center of the then the known world in many places. So that was a big blow. But at the same time, I must say that it had kept many of the other elements intact, like primary and secondary education. So the prosperity was still there, although it had lost the pole position, you can say. But इसी पे जो जोड़ों का झटका फिर से लगी, that was during the time of the British rule. And the British rule, what it did was it created the dispossession of land. For the first time, people were losing their lands, and that was the zamindari system, and people lost their lands. So the production systems went out of their control. Land and water, which is the most fundamental in providing the productive systems of this land, those were disturbed. So the disturbed ecosystems is where the land and water systems had the roadways coming up, which blocked many of the traditional ones to the roadways. But the problem was that even when the British went away, independent India में भी हमने इसको बरकरार रखे, and we continued and actually accelerated some of the wrong policies which the and that is where I think we need to really understand that over the last 70 odd years, or majority part of the 70 odd years, how we have really worked against the interest, and then think of what has actually gone wrong. So we did talk about the central government's idea of the freight equalization policy, which actually led to deindustrialization and de-skilling. We also talked about how revenues were not only diverted by the center, but also by the state. Whatever revenues it was generating was also getting diverted not into productive systems like in Punjab, as in the irrigation infrastructure, but in protective systems, which is primarily the embankments and for flood protection. Now, this is what I would say has slowly given rise to a situation where the mindset of a very large number of people in Bihar has changed into more of a protection orientation, जहाँ पे लोग security खोजते हैं. So बाढ़ से मुझे बचना है, खाद्य की कमी से मुझे बचना है. How do I become food secure? How do I protect my house? How do I protect my livelihoods? So it is about protection and security, which you will see even today. Like if you ask anybody, any young student, कि बड़े होके भाई क्या बनना चाहते हो? The common answer is कि सरकारी नौकरी करना चाहते हैं. So again, that is coming from the whole issue is about security, job security. So this, in a way, has created a system where the enterprise, जिसे हम कहते हैं, the initiative of individuals to come out and do things which requires risk, and that risk-taking ability to a very large extent is lost. Now, एक तरफ हम प्रोटेक्शन की तरफ जोर लगा रहे हैं, दूसरी तरफ से हमारा रिस्क टेकिंग एबिलिटी घटता जा रहा है. सो दिस इज वेयर वी हैव रियली कम टू. नाउ इफ आई कैन सी दैट काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन जहां पे लोग आज भी छोटे मोटे जमीन को ही ज्यादा जरूरत मानते हैं. They are really trying to look for how can I, if I have some investable surplus, what do I do? In any other part of the country, any individual will like to put it in a bank account or would like to put it into, say, a mutual fund or into the bourses, so into some of the stock market. But here in Bihar, people would like to invest any surpluses that they have into buying a small piece of land. So which to them is the real protection. Now, this has serious consequences in the way in which the land markets are functioning. And even if you look at it, we see that only a small proportion of people control the maximum part of the land. And a very large proportion of the people have very small land units. And these land units are also difficult to maintain. Because of several reasons. एक तो अगर नदी के आसपास है तो it can be washed away one day, and then you don't know whether that land physically existed, and then that land will come up in somewhere else, and it's पे again, whose land is it? So managing and maintaining land is a complex issue, and once you see that as a complex issue, उस पे ज़्यादा जोर चले जाती है फिर. And then you find all types of mechanisms, particularly in a state where the law and order situation is weak. The state is weak. What happens then is people tend to look at extra government security. So it could be simple taking up arms, private armies, and you even had the extremism which had festered for a very long time in the state. And all of it related to how small patches of land could be maintained and how these can be owned. So the ownership issue itself remains a very big issue. Who owns the land and how much? And how do you protect that land? So the whole issue is about protecting, not about producing more, not about taking risk with a new crop variety, for instance, or a new method of agriculture. Nobody is talking about that. So people are more interested in protecting what they have rather than exploring options of how to increase their investments. So this, I think, is a major change that is required in the lives of people. And unless this is coming about, it is very difficult to really make any substantive transformation. So that
So you are making very important statement. I mean, this is a very grave issue, law and order, and people are concerned about protecting their land.
Yes.
Forget about increasing their farming, or maybe increasing their wealth, or maybe productive ways of agriculture. But they are more concerned about what they have, how to protect it, and probably they somehow through their conversation, the connotation is that people are not very sure about the law and order in the state, and they really want to have either some other means of keeping their wealth, their assets secure. So they are looking probably there's a lack of trust, maybe whatever reasons are behind it, and they really need. So maybe the government need to focus on certain aspect. One of them is having more police force in proportion to the population of the state. Maybe in Bihar there's a police force number of the police personnel are less than actually they should be.
Yes, I think you're very right. When Bihar became a separate state, separated from Jharkhand, Bihar actually did not even have a police training center. Now the first police academy has come up in Rajgir next to our university here. So a lot has changed over the last 10 odd years, 10, 15 years. A lot has changed. The number of police people have increased. If you go out on the roads, even in a small town like Rajgir here, you will see a large number of police vehicles moving around, a large number of police personnel actually being deployed. So the visibility of police has actually increased, tremendously increased, and particularly what is most heartening is the fact that you even see a large number of women police. So that gives a lot of confidence to the people, and but that is something that's exactly what I'm coming to. One is, of course, how qualified are these policing systems? How do these institutions become better? Because there's not been a police system or a structure for a very long time. It was really destroyed over the decades, but now it is coming back again. So, how qualified, how well trained? The government is taking a lot of steps. It is actually visible, but still, there is a need to build that trust, and that trust will be built only over time. So, it is not just about the police system, but also about building the trust with the communities, working with the communities. Today, uh, you and me, or even any for normal people, we think twice before approaching the police. Are the police actually citizen friendly? So that is something that we have to ask and actually look into it. Second, if there is an issue, how quickly is the justice system delivering? So that was something again which has been of a focus, and a lot has happened there. So the justice system has moved in a very big way. Now, some very prominent cases has been solved very quickly. But as I am saying, that this is something which has happened over a long period of time, and therefore the protection mindset that has grown within the people, it is going to take a while to reverse. And how we can reverse this is a real question. So yes, law and order, improvement of law and order, improvement of the judicial system is definitely the most important and the most significant thing. And it is actually related to several other things. It's also related to infrastructure, for instance. So if you have infrastructure, and a lot is happening, so we have power which has now almost gone into each and every village in the state.
This is the question I wanted to ask you that बिहार में क्या इतनी बिजली है कि इंडस्ट्रीज चल सके, क्या बिहार में इतनी सड़कें हैं कि कोई उद्योग धंधे वहां आ सके, इंडस्ट्री लगा सके, क्या इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को लेकर क्या बिहार में सरकार में, या मान लीजिए कि क्या कोई ऐसा उन्होंने पटना के अलावा कोई ऐसी जगह मॉडल तैयार किया हो जिसको एक प्रस्तुत किया जा सके उदाहरण के तौर पर कि ये ऐसी जगह है जहां हमने सरप्लस बिजली दे दी, ये ऐसी जगह हमने जहां अच्छी सड़कें भी दे दी, ये ऐसी जगह है जहां हम पानी बिजली सड़कों की सप्लाई अच्छी रखी है हमने, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन इस इलाके की बिहार की बहुत अच्छी है, तो यहाँ उद्योग धंधे आ सकते हैं और इसी के उदाहरण लेके बिहार के अलग अलग इलाकों में भी इसको अपनाया जा सकता है।
देखिए, मैं बिहार सरकार की प्लान्स के बारे में तो नहीं बता सकता हूँ, लेकिन जो दिखती है सामने वो ये है कि नाउ द रोड सिस्टम हैज इम्प्रूव्ड फेनोमिनली. सो द रोड नेटवर्क, most of the areas are getting 4-lane highways. So 4-lane highways are now connecting almost every important place. There was, I think, a recent statement or a goal of the state government to connect Patna with all district headquarters so that they are able to come within the most shortest possible time. So that's the kind of infrastructure that is happening. The national infrastructure, the Golden Quadrilateral, so which is a 6-lane highways, that has also come up in a very large way. So majority of the main infrastructure, the road infrastructure, is in place as of now. और भी बहुत सारे बन रही है. So this is still one of the laggard states in terms of the amount of infrastructure that is happening in the country. But still, it has reached, I think, it is doing quite well. Simultaneously, power systems, the power structures are, as I said, it has moved into almost every village now. The issue is, of course, managing that power, recovering that power, making it sustainable, making it assured. So that's a very important thing. The assurance is very important that this power is of a quality and a stability that can
जी,
run sophisticated
क्या
instruments.
24 घंटे बिजली सप्लाई आ रही
Right,
है? क्या बिजली पावर के जो इक्विपमेंट्स लगाए जाते हैं कि
right.
अनइंटरप्टेड पावर सप्लाई रहे? क्योंकि किसी उद्योग धंधे के आने के लिए जरूरी बहुत है कि बिजली की अनइंटरप्टेड सप्लाई रहे। ये नहीं कि बिजली आधे घंटे कट गई, 1 घंटे कट गई, 6 घंटे कट गई, फिर है, फिर नहीं है, या तो वो जो पावर इक्विपमेंट्स लगाए जाते हैं, या जो सस्टेनेंस की बात है, मेंटेनेंस की बात है, उसको चलाने के लिए क्या वो पूरा सिस्टम दुरुस्त है?
बिल्कुल, अभी तो over the last 3 years, I think there's been a phenomenal push in this direction.
जी,
And this, I can see now that Bihar is becoming power surplus in many ways, and the quality of power is also improving. My personal view is that Bihar has certain opportunities, and
जी,
if you ask me about the industrialization की अगर बात करें, तो the type of things that is happening, say from Delhi to Mumbai, the Delhi-Mumbai corridor जिस तरह से बन रही है, the industrial corridor, या Delhi to Agra, the industrial corridor जिस तरह से बन रही है further towards Lucknow. Similar kind of a thing is possible here because you remember this is the place through which the National Highway number 1 or number 2, which is the Grand Trunk Road, which passes through this place. So here there is a very old route is going through southern Bihar, and southern Bihar is an area where there are no issues of floods. So the flood issue is not there. There is a major highway which is running through it. There are some major cities in that area. Gaya is located there. Son is located there. So these are areas, and you have certain industries, and these some of these are also adjacent to Jharkhand. So I would think that these are areas which has the potential to be converted into urban industrial complexes, and these are areas which if they are thought of in a holistic manner, and if we are trying to attract investments for urbanization, for industrialization, and there are feeder connectivity which goes into the hinterland, into the flood prone areas of North Bihar, जहाँ से लोग कई घंटे में चले आ सकते हैं. So they
जी,
would not be needing to go outside the state. And outside the state meaning you lose out some of the brain, some of the investments, and a lot of things. So people who are earning money, if they are able to spend that money here, that is much better. So आज के तारीख
ये
में देख
बात बहुत आपने अच्छी बताई कि अगर लोग पैसा कमा रहे हैं तो ऐसा नहीं है वो वापस बिहार में ला रहे हैं, और वो बाहर ही जाके सेटल हो रहे हैं एक तरह से। उन्होंने पढ़ाई भी बाहर ही की, या कुछ उसके बाद उनका ऐसा नहीं है कि वो वापस बिहार आना चाह रहे हैं। या बैंकिंग सिस्टम की ही बात कर लें, तो क्या बैंकिंग सिस्टम में बैंकर्स का भी इतना भरोसा लोगों में है कि वो सच में लोगों को पैसा डेट देने पर भरोसा करते हैं? क्या रिकवरी हो पाएगी पैसे की, नहीं हो पाएगी? तो वो एक इकोनॉमी में, बैंकिंग सिस्टम में, या वो सब चीजों में रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है। एक जो कहें विशेष सर्कल से बाहर आने के लिए काफी चुनौतियां हैं बिहार में।
बिल्कुल। तो देखिए मैं यहाँ पे दो सेगमेंट करना चाहूंगा। एक सेगमेंट वो है जो द एस्पिरेशन लेवल which
जी,
has actually gained some skills and some knowledge, education, people who have gone out, made some money coming back, and instead of investing in some small landed property, they can actually think in investing in some productive asset. Take part of and start a micro, small, medium enterprise, for instance. So that's one aspect, and if they're not doing, what will influence? That's one part. But the same class is also consuming. So अगर आप malls पे जाते हैं, so they are buying stuff. So and these stuff are being produced elsewhere. Now that is the mismatch, and in a way that is the situation where we are as a nation as well. So अगर हमारे पास क्षमता है कुछ खरीदने की, then we are going in for material or goods which are produced outside the country, and that does not help our economy. So what we need is that production system has to really match the quality that we expect from what we are getting from anywhere else. So once the production system matches that level, and once we start thinking that, okay, we can buy an equally good quality product which is locally made, then only the economy will pick up. Now, that's one aspect, but the other aspect is a very large population जिसके लिए ये banking system जो है, they are first generation getting into the bank. They are first generation who are now thinking that, okay, if I have a bank account, I might access some amount of money that is coming from direct benefit transfers from the government. So maybe direct benefit transfers, maybe a gas subsidy which comes into the bank account. So a bank account for the majority of the people is again formed for simple protection of their livelihoods. Now, this is where I think the critical aspect is what I call the financial literacy. Now, how literate are the people, particularly those who have got the Jandhan accounts very recently created, or people who have been getting some amount of money into the banking system? So, how can we speed up the process of learning how to do basic banking? And basic banking means savings, credits, and insurance. So if you understand savings, credits, and insurance, that takes care of a variety of things. And then, of course, other things will follow. So that's, I think, the critical aspect is where the state government has also worked very diligently on creating the women's self-help groups through the Jivika program, one of the largest programs in the country. Here we have is the Jivika program. So these are women's groups which has worked very diligently in trying to understand the banking systems, in trying to organize themselves as production units. So this is, I think, another important step. And this is a step which is also allowing other aspects to converge, like women's health, adolescent health, mother and child health, like teaching their early childhood development. So young mothers who themselves are not educated enough but can begin to read and read to their own children. So which means that the next generation is actually going to benefit. So when we think about development, we have to think of different segments. We have to think about different aspects and dimensions. And each and every point that we pick has to have a continuous flow as to how we can think in terms of, so what is the next step, what is the next step, and what is the next step. And often these are integrated. So a development process will integrate human health, will integrate education systems, and will integrate the skill development and skill building. So when I talk about education, for instance, one of the major problems of education in Bihar has been language. So Bihar had community systems of education, like most of the other Eastern Indian or most parts of India as well, which Macaulay education system completely ignored and set up the state level education systems. Now the state education system, what it does is it recruits a large number of teachers, and then these teachers are deployed in various parts of the state to teach. Now what happens is, in a state like Bihar, there are different dialects. So we can say that Bihar is a Hindi knowing state, but not necessarily a Hindi speaking state. So if you go to different parts of Bihar, they'll be speaking different dialects. So you can talk about Bhojpuri, you know about Maithili, you know about Magadhi or Magahi, but there are also other dialects which are very popularly used, like Angika, Vajjika. So these are different languages and dialects that are prominently used. And so what happens is, a child is talking to her parents and grandparents in a particular dialect, goes to the school, and the school teacher is talking in another dialect because she comes from another part of the state through the recruitment system. And then she is expected to learn English. So you can imagine the kind of a system or the structure that it evolves. So that child is torn between different languages, and then there is a syllabus that has to be completed. So I'll tell you an example. In 2006,
Quite interesting.
yeah, in 2006, when I was actually touring some parts of rural Bihar, we went into different schools. And in each of these schools at class 1, we were asking students to draw an image, whatever they felt like. Class 1 students, imagine, the 6-year-old students, we asked them to draw an image. You won't believe, in school after school after school, we saw all the students drawing the same image. Can you believe it? And not only the same image, it also was following the same structure. सबने कमल का फूल बनाया और सबने कमल का फूल 4 पंक्तियों में डॉट्स लगाए और उस डॉट्स को जोड़ के बनाना चालू किए. That set us thinking that where does a 6-year-old child learn to draw a kamal ka phool in this manner? Then you realize this is what our education system is imparting. This is what the teachers are being trained, and this is what the trained teachers are executing in the schools. So we simply said that, okay, this is the quality of education right now. If you want to change this education, come back 1 year later and we would like to see that the children are drawing something else. That would be our understanding. So what I'm trying to say is the education system has been completely destroyed in the recent years with the type of setup that we have, the type of teachers training. And still, we are talking about only teachers training. And we are now, thank God, we have the new education policy, which hopefully is going to change all of this, is going to disrupt and end this madness that we call the education system of children.
जी बिल्कुल, बहुत ही अहम पहलुओं पर आपने ध्यान दिया कि जो स्कूल एजुकेशन होती है वो नींव, फाउंडेशन होती है किसी भी छात्र की जिंदगी का. वो अगर बेहतर होती है, वो बहुत अच्छी होती है, तो जिंदगी जो जिसमें जो को कर पाता है वो बहुत ही आपकी, अगर आपको ग्रामर स्कूल में सिखाई जाती है, आपकी भाषा का ज्ञान आपको स्कूल में बताया जाता है, चाहे हिंदी की बात हो, चाहे इंग्लिश की बात हो, चाहे जनरल नॉलेज की बात हो, चाहे जनरल साइंस हो, चाहे ज्योग्राफी हो, ये सारे विषय पढ़ाए जाते हैं. और अब अगर इसको अगर पढ़ लिया उसने ढंग से, अगर उसकी राइटिंग स्किल्स अच्छी हो गई, उसकी और जो स्पोकन इंग्लिश है या स्पोकन लैंग्वेज है वो अच्छी हो गई, तो वो जिंदगी में किसी भी मुकाम पर आगे बढ़ सकता है. लेकिन अगर वहां कमी रह गई तो पूरा फाउंडेशन ही कमजोर है, तो आगे क्या कर पाएगा. इसी के साथ यहाँ स्कूल एजुकेशन की आपने बात की, जिसमें पूरा ओवरहॉलिंग की जरूरत है, पूरे बदलाव की जरूरत है. लेकिन संख्या की अगर बात करें तो स्कूलों की संख्या क्या पॉपुलेशन के लिहाज से उसके प्रोपोर्शन में है, कॉलेजेस की का जितना नंबर है वो है, या यूनिवर्सिटीज की संख्या बिहार में जितनी जनसंख्या है उसके प्रोपोर्शन में है? क्योंकि सदर्न स्टेट में इंडिया की देखा जाता है कि वहाँ हेल्थ और एजुकेशन पे बहुत फोकस रहता है. शायद यही वजह है कि उनकी प्रॉस्पेरिटी की, कि हमारे जो भारत के दक्षिणी राज्य हैं वहां पर हेल्थ और एजुकेशन के मामले में वो उत्तरी राज्यों से काफी बेहतर है. खासतौर पे अगर बिहार या यूपी से हम कंपैरिजन करें, तो ये कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं जिन पर फोकस करने की जरूरत है. बहुत क्वालिटी एजुकेशन, चाहे स्कूल एजुकेशन की बात हो या हायर एजुकेशन की बात हो या नंबर ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेज की बात हो, तो अगर मान लीजिए कि स्कूल की बिल्डिंग्स भी तैयार होती हैं, तो कितने लोगों को रोजगार मिलेगा वहां, और उनकी परचेजिंग पावर आओगी, तो वो फिर जब उनकी बाइंग पावर बढ़ेगी तो वो उससे अपनी प्रॉस्पेरिटी उनकी बढ़ेगी, वो शायद अपनी एसेट बिल्ड करेंगे, या जहां भी वो उसको लगाना चाहते हैं, लेवल ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग बढ़ेगा. अगर एक कॉलेज की बिल्डिंग बनती है तो कितने लोगों को उसमें रोजगार मिलेगा, बिल्डिंग बनने से लेके, और जब उसमें स्टूडेंट्स पढ़ने जाएंगे तब तक. यूनिवर्सिटी तैयार होती है तो पता नहीं कितने लोगों को उससे रोजगार मिलेगा. साथ ही साथ उस एरिया का डेवलपमेंट भी होगा. तो इस लिहाज से भी जो इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, सरकारी इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, चाहे पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप में इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, तो उसके प्रोपोर्शन में, उस इन्वेस्टमेंट के प्रोपोर्शन में या किसी प्रोजेक्ट में इन्वेस्टमेंट के प्रोपोर्शन में जो रोजगार तैयार होते हैं और जो स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग तैयार होता है, उस पर भी फोकस करने की जरूरत है.
देखिए, अभी The good thing about the new education policy is it is goal based, outcome based. So it is not talking about the inputs anymore. कि
Okay.
किस तरह से बिल्डिंग्स बनेगी, किस तरह से टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग होगी, वी डोंट केयर. वी केयर अबाउट व्हाट एक्चुअली इज द एंड प्रोडक्ट, एंड रिजल्ट क्या होना चाहिए, एंड दैट आई थिंक इज अ गेम चेंजर.
जी.
So Abibi, and I think this is going to benefit Bihar in many ways, because Bihar has maintained its education under the carpet, in the darkness, I would say, through in a very different way. How I would tell you, एक छोटा सा जगह, कोई भी छोटा सा शहर आप ले लीजिए बिहार के किसी भी जिले में. मैं राजगीर में हूँ तो यहाँ का जानता हूँ, लेकिन और कहीं पे भी आप चले जाइए, आई हैव टूर्ड द एंटायर लेंथ एंड ब्रेड्थ ऑफ द स्टेट. सो किसी भी डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, आपको डिस्ट्रिक्ट में छोटे छोटे जो ब्लॉक लेवल के, वहाँ पे ट्यूशंस आर मोस्टली रन फ्रॉम क्लास 4-5 to class 8, or by the time they are in class 8-9, they are also enrolled in government school. So people, जो parents हैं, spending money to ensure that their children get some kind of an education. अगर आप कह सकते हैं कि वो कैसा क्वालिटी है, बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, paying money, Bihar are really excelling engineering exams or
UPSC.
medical exams.